Are we ready to get started?
Yeah.
Mute. I think I made it.
You made it. Yay.
Damn,
All right.
I'm such a dinosaur. I swear.
You're fine. I'm going to share. I'm going to start the share. Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to say welcome, everyone.
Yeah.
So nice to see you all here for our 440 Gallery Artist Talk. Today, we're lucky to have Leigh Blanchard's show Heartland, which includes work by Schneider Johnson. And also in the project space, we have Color Connections with Ellen Chuse, Gail Flanery, and Catherine Orrok. So first, we're going to take a little peek at the installation. And I always like to tell everyone, I love having this because lots of people that are out of town that can never make it to see the show will get to see all the pieces in the show. But if you are in town or if it's possible for you to see the work in person, oh my gosh, it's really amazing and it's a really different experience. And I also want to say before we start that I'll ask everybody to stay muted until we get to the end of the questions that I ask, and then we'll open it for everyone to ask questions. You can either unmute yourself or you could type in the chat and put your questions there. So without further ado, I just want to let you know, you can take note if we look at the works, see if you can spot which ones are Leigh's and which ones are Jean's. And we'll also get a sneak peek of Color Connections in the project space. Yeah, there's a nice wall. And I think we're about to see some images from the opening reception. And Leigh, feel free to make any comments if you have them about the opening reception. It's also nice to see the scale. So we'll see the pieces individually, but here's the chance to see how they fit in on a wall and with each other from outside. Yeah, here's the opening reception.
Yeah, it was so lovely to have my grandmother as well, because my immediate family, my mom actually had to drive from Chicago to Iowa, and then they flew together. So it was a big trip, but it was well worth it and really, really nice to have everyone there.
So fabulous. And so now look at Leigh's images and at Jean's images. And I don't really want to spill the beans about the whole concept of the show. I want to leave that to Leigh. So congratulations on a beautiful show with a unique approach. Can you please tell our viewers about the concept behind the show and also introduce your collaborator?
Yeah, so my collaborator is my grandmother, Jean Johnson. And so the concept of the show, I would say, well, it all started probably like the Christmas before last Christmas. And we always spend every Christmas with my grandma. She lives in Iowa, has been painting for, as long as I can remember, since I was little. And we wanted to document her paintings just because, some are on the wall, some are in her studio that she has, and, they're kind of everywhere. So we wanted to document them and make sure that we knew what everything was. And I feel like the way that I work is almost like more of a curator than a creator sometimes, because I feel like I work with images and what's around me at a given moment. And since all those images were with me, I just started playing with them kind of instinctively, and was having a lot of fun making new works from that. And then as the show progressed and as I had, a looming solo show on the horizon, I thought, how cool would it be to show my grandma's pieces up on the wall as well? Because first of all, they're just great in their own right, but also how nice to have, like I've never shown like the inspiration with the piece before. So yeah, that's sort of how it all came about.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to pose a question to both you, Leigh, and also to Jean, if your audio is working. Did your thoughts and feelings about your own work and each other's work shift after seeing this beautiful, complete show? It's really wonderful to see the work together with that we're seeing right here now. So we see Jean's piece of geraniums on the left. I think they're geraniums, and and Leigh's on the right, altered, of course. So it just seems like there must have been some process that happened seeing them all together.
Yeah, I would say, at least for me, that install day was really big. I mean, I've seen a lot of these paintings, more than once. And the context has always been, in a house of sorts. And so for me specifically, seeing the orange barn piece be hung up on the wall, because I knew where I wanted that one. I wanted to have kind of some space by itself, and to see it up there was really kind of like a moving moment, because I always loved the paintings and thought like, oh, my grandma's so talented. But then when you put it on a wall, and especially like that gallery typical white wall by itself, I'm like, oh, this artist is talented. Like it removed like kind of, it was just like on its own, it brought it to, I think, the work to another level of like, it's not just my grandma, it's a great object, it's a great piece of work. So I think that was very like powerful experience, just install day in general. And then I think for me as an artist, it definitely, this series definitely pushed me into like a color palette that I don't typically use. And I think it pushed me to realize I'm like capable of more than I thought I was as an artist. So yeah.
Jean, is it possible for you to weigh in?
Do you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's wonderful, because I kind of have lost my picture. I'm not very adept at electronics, I guess, but I've been enjoying hearing you, and I was not certain that I could contribute, but I was overjoyed to have this experience with Leigh. There are really no words that I can convey the wonderful thing it was for me to participate with her, and I'm so impressed with what she did. I would really think that I could never be an inspiration for something like that. So, it's a kind of a long artistic touch in my life, because my father also was a painter, and it just has been so nice to see that carry on and into Leigh's talents. So I'm beholden to her, and I just want to thank you all for allowing me to participate in the exhibit. So that's where I'll leave it right now.
Thank you, Jean.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because we've had this idea of, well, I'll speak for myself, of Leigh as like the experimental kind of cutting edge, willing to push the envelope and let tradition go by the wayside. And now here we see her like pulling tradition in and getting a really different view of how you work, Leigh. So I know that we're always curious about how your images come about. Could you please walk us through your process, showing here the specific reference from Jean's work?
Yeah, so the process for these is kind of similar to other processes that I've used in previous series, but just like more. So I would do multiple things. First, I'd had these lovely high-res scans of all the paintings. So I took them into this place to get them scanned, and I got images from that. And then I would also take pictures with my camera, and I would kind of get in close to the painting and to interesting spots. And then I would make prints from my computer. And so I would print, and then I would start kind of cutting into my prints of them. So not the originals, but I would cut into my own prints and kind of start making like collages and things like that. And then I put that on my scanner, rescan, rephotograph. It was just kind of a process of, like, I would say the big three are photographing, scanning, and printing, and just like rinse and repeat and then overlay the images until it got somewhere that I thought was really interesting and beautiful. And I played a lot with this series with my work is typically very abstract, like you'll see in the other example with the blue that's inspired by the mace. Yeah, exactly. In that piece, it's really pushed to where my work typically ends up going, which is fully abstract. And this is the one I've actually gotten the most questions on. And like, I don't understand how this one fits in, which ones is this referencing? And so that's kind of the more abstract realm. And then the other piece, it was sometimes just highlighting, just the beauty and the way she captured that flower. I wanted to keep that in the way it was and have a little more figuration, and then kind of abstracting the rest. So yeah, it was definitely probably the most figurative that I've gone, just because of the original material and how I wanted to honor that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I think you're underplaying it a little to say that you're mainly curating. And I see your idea of curating, but the control that you have in manipulating what you choose and how it's going to look is really artful and poetic and beautiful.
Thank you.
And also seeing the work side by side, it's interesting to see how the harmony among the work in the show, it works. There's a glowing palette, there's a tenderness, there's a sense of memory that unites the traditional and the experimental. And I'd like to hear from both of you about your impressions of where this intersects for you.
Yeah, I would say that I believe that kind of glow and tenderness and memory that you mentioned, I think that for me at least definitely stems from my grandmother's work. I think those are like three big ways of describing the work in general. And I think for me, it was really just trying to capture and play off of that and grow on top of it. And I think this was, a challenging series for me because of that, because I've never worked with material before that I had such a connection with, and you know, such a respect for in a way. So it was challenging to let the original work and it's what it had to say speak, and then also kind of add to that without kind of tampering on it. So that was my kind of goal the whole time. And in terms of like what we have in common, I would say I think there's like a softness to both of our work. And I think the overwhelming feeling after kind of thinking about this for a while is that there's such a joy when I was walking into the show. It seems like we both have such a joy of creating, of making a beautiful piece of art. And I feel like you feel that when you walk into the show.
Agreed.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I was thinking how good it is to see the different interpretations of a subject matter, and it's the difference between the pictures. It opens up, you know, new horizons and new visions and creativity. And I just am thinking that it was so refreshing to see the same subject matter treated in different ways, you know. And I admire Leigh's creativity about it. I think, you know, I kind of would like to try to loosen up a little bit too, because I think that's really important.
I think it's beautiful that there's such a connection of mutual respect. That, and you can feel it with Leigh's work, that and Leigh and I were talking about this a little bit, like when you use other work and other images that, you know, maybe aren't somebody's artwork, you're just using them for your own purpose, and you don't really think about how it relates to the person or the thing that you took it from.
Yes.
But then it's side by side, and to see that level of respect and kind of homage too, it's really impressive. And
it's a happy thing, a happy thing.
And if we had seen Leigh's work without Jean's work, it would have been really, really interesting. And to the other level that it brings it to is really a wonderful thing. So Jean, I really appreciate your work being here.
Yes, I was so excited about the whole thing, and saw it and was even more pleased, and just leave it at that. I hope to paint some more. I think maybe Leigh has opened up my interest again. I'd kind of let my painting slide by just in the ordinary way of living, and she's kind of refreshed my interest, and we'll see what happens. Maybe I will get something going that will be a little more creative too, you know.
Well, we'll be interested to see. So
yeah,
yeah. We have Leigh to connect us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So viewers, if you have questions for Leigh and Jean, please put it in the chat or hang on to them, and we're going to move on to ask the questions of the artists in the project space. So Color Connections includes Ellen Chuse, Gail Flanery, and Catherine Orrok. So let's take a look at Ellen's work. Ellen, congratulations on such a strong show. I'm impressed with the vibrancy of these pieces. At first, they feel simple and bold, and then as I stay with them, the complexity of color becomes more apparent. Can you speak to your approach to color here? Oh, you're muted, Ellen. I appreciate that, but let's unmute now.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Karen, for great questions. Yes, and I'm delighted to be here. Well, I mean, I have a very intuitive approach to color. There's no theory behind it. And while my forms, I work on a lot before, I really get into the color. The color is not at all premeditated. I really have no idea what it's going to look like in the end. But here in these two pieces, I made a very deliberate decision to expand my palette a little bit and try not to work only with some of the colors where I feel very comfortable, if that makes sense. So I always know where I begin in a piece, and that's true even of the drawing. I know where I begin. I really don't know where it's going to end, and particularly with color. One of the things, the dark forms that I've been using for a long time now, I mean, one of the things that's interesting to me is that while they can appear black, they're not black. They're made with Jenkins green and with cerulean blue deep. And in layering those colors, I can kind of change it. Here in Big Shield, the blue comes through much more dramatically. And it has the whole form has a more watery quality. I can also make it feel flatter and more opaque in a way. So, that, and then I just wanted to try to lighten my palette a bit. And so this is what happened. And with Enigma, obviously, something quite different going on. And I had really no idea. I mean, I had a base color. I mean, I work in acrylic. I just, for consistency of surface, I put down a base color, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, Jenkins green, something, and not an expensive color, just something to hold the paper and to be a place to begin. And I was working with the blue form, and it just sat for a long time. And then the color of the ground, which extended throughout, even where you see I'm pointing my screen now, which you can't see, but into the brighter red. And in between, I mean, it would sit for weeks. It even went into a drawer at one point. I really had no idea what I was going to do. And then bit by bit, it came together. And that's why I entitled it Enigma, because it's still a puzzle to me. So I was very grateful to people who gave me feedback at the opening. I felt that was really helpful. I'm still not sure if I understand it, but I guess it reminds me that maybe working intuitively is not a bad idea. So.
And that's kind of what keeps us engaged is, that kind of quest to have it make sense.
Yeah. And if I knew what it was going to look like at the beginning, then it would be incredibly boring
to paint it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ellen, next, I'd like to comment on the iconic nature of the images. They feel both archetypal and mysterious. Can you tell us about your intentions?
Well, I've always been interested in a bit of mystery. And even when I used to work more representationally, a lot with forms in nature, whether it was leaves or pods, I always wanted to create an ambiguity of scale. It's like, what are we looking at? Is this a pod or is it a mountain? Is it a leaf or is it a landscape? So I've always been interested in that. I used to call it ambiguity of scale. And now I am much more interested. I mean, I feel like the archetypal forms just have so much inherent mystery of their own, and they can be interpreted in so many ways, so that when I'm working with them in combination with color, it has to be mysterious to me to be interesting. Again, its meaning unfolds for me in the painting or in a series of paintings. And I'm one of these people, as I said, in many ways in my life, work intuitively and only learn afterwards, like what I've actually done. And I really like the idea that people can bring their own interpretations to my work. I mean, there's a reason why these forms are so profound and have existed in art and life for so long.
That totally makes sense. So it seems that you're expanding your repertoire. Do these pieces give us any hints about what direction you're headed in?
Well, they are emblematic of the fact that that I am exploring, and I do know that with the shield, which I've mentioned to a couple of people, I did a few of the small shields, and they were in my last show. And I was inspired by a friend who, when he saw them, said, "Oh my goodness, I saw, photos of them, and I thought they were enormous." And I thought, oh, okay, maybe I'll make a big one. And so I did. And I'm very happy with it, but I feel like that's kind of the end. I don't feel like there's anything more in the shield form that I really want or need to work with. I have another enigma in process, which is equally confounding. And and I'm working with some other forms and trying to find some forms and shapes that have meaning for me, that have mystery for me, and then to continue on with that. So I feel like I really am in a place. It was making me very anxious for a while, and I've come to a place of accepting that things take their own time, and that something will unfold if I just keep working, and also give myself some space not to have to know.
That makes sense. Keep on keeping on.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that's where I am right now, but I feel like I'm on the cusp of and my cat is wanting to walk across the keyboard, which then takes me out of Zoom. But I feel like I'm kind of excited now, and whatever it is will involve some interesting form and definitely some saturated color.
Thank you so much, Ellen.
Thank you.
And now we're going to move on to Gail Flanery. So let's take a look at Gail's work. Congratulations, Gail. Your work here is beautiful.
Thank you.
I love how your work combines abstraction and landscape so elegantly. Can you speak to that marriage?
Okay. Yeah, it there has always been definitely a relationship. Work I made, it makes me palette and my composition, and but I'm not working realistically. I bring back ideas, certain ideas about color and about composition, and then I start work leads me. It starts with the palette. I mix up the palette, and then the composition begins to evolve from that. I'm not sure how, but it just happens. Often, you can divide it: sky, land, sea. So that's a place, an obvious place to start. I guess some of that is about creating an atmosphere, and maybe even a sense of place and memory, because rather than specifically a place, kind of a feeling in a way. Yeah.
Beautiful. So I believe these are monotypes. I get
They are.
between monotypes and monoprints, but and it's aptly called the painterly print. Can you
Yes.
tell us more about your process and any new elements that are creeping in to these pieces?
Well, there are some new elements creeping in. I've begun using this old technique called shin collé, which is an Asian. It started in Japan, and it's a way of collaging when you're printing. So you kind of press the collage in. You're almost melding the two papers in a way with water and pressure.
Here has Shinkalei, correct? The one we're seeing right.
The one we're seeing, yes. And again, it was a technique that I had the honor of being taught while working with my friend who's a master printer, who I've worked with for a very, very long time, Kathy Craccio. And it's, I was talking, I mean, there's this moment, you know, you make your marks on the plate, you've added your color, you've rolled it, you've scratched it, you've set it all up, the paper goes on, the blanket comes down, and then it disappears. And there's this moment, you're cranking it through the press, and there's a delay between the mark making that you did and the actually seeing the result. And that's that moment of, well, it's a moment where you're like, you know, and it's the difference between when I'm painting or drawing directly on paper, you know, where the mark, you make the mark and you see the mark. There's this little delay with printmaking that always has given me a bit of a thrill. And sometimes it comes out pretty well, and sometimes, maybe it needs some more mark making. But the process captured me because there's a little bit of serendipity in it. Well, that sort of is cool.
Very cool. So Gail, can you speak about your connection to color? The show is so perfectly titled Color Connections. I'm thinking about your own color philosophy and how your color sense connects with other works in the show.
Well, I think when I was listening to Ellen talk, I was absolutely totally understanding some of the things she was talking about when she talked about building color, layers of color, and how the buildup and the overlay, you know, can give you such a tone and such a depth. And I guess I'm also considering exactly that, using color to give me depth on that paper, because I work on paper pretty much all the time. And I like to have hints of color from under, one layer from under another, kind of peek through, even if it's only just a deeper yellow, you know, or something that comes through. Because that's also the truth about color, isn't it? When you're out there looking at your leaves or at your sky or at your, you know, horizon. And color, boy, it just, like I say, it helps me to project a mood and maybe even a place or a memory. It's pretty strong tool.
Absolutely. And I like what you pointed out, that everybody here in the project space is taking advantage of layering in their own way. So thank you, Gail. And that brings Catherine Orrok.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Catherine, congratulations. It's a pleasure to see your work in this fine show. I love how your work brings to mind a grid, but then questions the grid as well. Tell us about your approach to geometric abstraction.
Sure. Thanks so much, Karen. And thanks for such great questions. So the grid, it's such a basic structure. It's a structure that, well, when thinking in terms of art, it's been used for a long time in rendering, but modernism has basically brought it to the fore and demanded that the grid makes the canvas flat. It's a structure that can be rigid, and so what I'm trying to do is push against that a little bit. You know, I see the grid as a systematic way of ordering things that man has invented, as opposed to the structure of nature, which is really a spiral, which is constantly moving and pushing. So what I'm trying to do is get rid of some of that rigidity, you know, tip my hat to modernism, to the flatness of the canvas, but say, you know, impart other things to it, things that happen because of our perceptions, our basic nature, our basic biological nature, the way we see things. So that has an impact. And I find that it's kind of neutral territory, you know, it's not, it just is what it is. So I can really delve into the nature of seeing without narrative or story or references other than what's just there on the canvas.
Yeah, so that's interesting in terms of my next question. There's a kind of triangulation among the three artists, and it feels to me like your work is kind of the unifier. What are your thoughts about the color connections you've found here?
I think that's really interesting that you see my work as the unifier. And, you know, I hadn't really thought of it that way. I mean, I knew the show looked really good, all the pieces hanging together, you know, the palettes were very complementary. But, you know, thinking about it, you know, I see, you know, Gail references nature. So it's got, you know, that kind of touchstone, and Ellen, her, you know, forms are so rich and spiritual. So they're like on two ends of this spectrum, and I'm kind of, you know, sort of neutral where I am. It's just the color. So I can see where that could be, you know, like kind of pull things together and say, hey, color, this is what we're looking at here.
And yeah, and I'm thinking that your sort of anti-narrative,
yeah,
lends the connection to the other ones that have a little bit of narrative.
Yeah, I like that you thought of that. It's a great question, and it made the connection part fit nicely. Yeah.
And yeah, again, I encourage anybody that's there in person to see, like, there's a lot of commonalities in like the intensity of the color and the layering of effects of each person, and then there's distinct differences, and somehow
I think we all mentioned working intuitively, which I do as well. The color choices are, you know, I'm aware of color theory, but it's not, that doesn't determine the choices. It's really like what I'm seeing in front of me and what feels right. And of course, if it doesn't work, you know, I'll paint over it and try something else. It's process as you go along, and so that adds to that layering, which is apparent, I think, in all of our work also.
Mm-hmm. So one more question for you. I love how you play with our perceptions, and I get involved with the layering that happens in this work. And I wonder if that's a constant for you or if things are evolving, and what can we look forward to in your work?
Well, I think the layering, I think that's a very important, because it's, again, thinking about this notion of, the flatness of the grid, and I'm playing with and pushing that. And so the layering does give you a sense of, a little bit of depth to it. There's something happening. It also speaks to time, I think, it's like something's behind, something's in front of. So I will be continuing with that aspect of things. What I am going to try and push is a change up in my format. So I've been working with the square for a very long time as a hat tip to the grid, that fits right in there. So the format is something that is a big consideration for me. But I'm thinking of doing something a little bit different and using rectangles, but very attenuated rectangles. So it's different from, it's not a landscape format or a portraiture format. It's, and I see them vertically. So I'm thinking, maybe seeing how that comes out.
Well, I'm very interested to see. So we look forward to new work from Catherine Orrok.
Thanks so much, Karen.
Thank you. So we are ready to look in the chat. We have from Nathan Dennis, "You're amazing, Jean." I agree. And Pistachio says to everyone, "Are there any specific techniques to experiment with color combinations?" So that's whoever would like to answer. That's an interesting question.
It is an interesting question. I mean, there's the classic, Albers has his, interaction of color, which is sort of a classic study of combinations of, placing things together, see what happens. So I would recommend looking into that. But I want to say, I just saw a wonderful show yesterday, a colorist, an artist that I was unfamiliar with, who his name is David Hornung, Hornung. He taught color at the University of Wisconsin. He's a painter, and his work is just gorgeous. But he also has a book that's still in print called Color, a Workshop for Artists and Designers. So that might be right up your alley. In fact, I'm going to get a copy for myself.
Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
So now we're just going to open the floor to whoever wants to. Oh, here's a question I'll be happy to read. Chris and Phil Johnson say, "Jean, can you remember where you were in your creative journey when you were about Leigh's age? What commonalities might there be as female artists?" Nice question. Jean, I wonder if you're, since I can't see you, I hope you could hear the question.
Hey, Grandma, are you there?
Yes, were you speaking to me?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a question for you.
Okay.
Chris and Phil Johnson are asking, can you remember where you were in your creative journey when you were Leigh's age, and what commonalities there might be as female artists?
I'm not certain I caught your question. Repeat it again, please.
Okay, yeah. So do you remember where you were in your creative journey when you were Leigh's age?
Okay.
Part one. Well, and the other.
I have to remember back when I was a little child. My father was painting in the winter months, and his easel was always in our dining room, and the paint smell and everything. And I actually, just loved watching him paint. And I always dreamed that I could do something like that. And I I don't know, it was after I was, married, and I needed a little hobby to get away from some of the, the daily things. I started painting again. Enjoyed it so much, but put it in the back part of my life just because of the busyness of family, growing and stuff. And I don't, can't take it. It just really kind of happened that I had opportunities to take part in some adult art classes at the Des Moines Art Center, and then again later with a woman artist in Des Moines, Mary Muller, who was a real inspiration to me. And I really can't speak for Leigh. Maybe she can tell you how she, became interested in the arts for her life. It just kind of happened by accident to me, and I think the sole creator of that interest was my father, of course. But I'll let Leigh speak for herself.
Yeah, I would say, I think that's the kind of a big theme of the show is the fact that you don't really know where the interest comes from, and maybe it's like genetic, maybe it's because you grew up seeing your father, I grew up seeing seeing other people in my family who were artists. So yeah, I think who knows really, but that's kind of the magic of it.
It's kind of a great gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And either of you, do you feel like there's commonalities between you as female artists? Do you think there's a female point of view that you both share?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there certainly could be. I honestly would have to give it more thought. I always think of myself as just kind of a artist, and don't really think about how gender plays into it, but I'm sure it does. I just don't really think too much about it personally. I don't know if Grandma, do you have a thought on that?
No, I would agree with you. Yeah.
Guess we're related.
I think so. I'm proud of that.
I just wanted to make a comment, if I may. Jean, your painting of cornfields, the corn, when I first saw that, I couldn't read it as corn. I didn't know what it was, but it just blew me away. It had this big sun, moon, and then these wonderful shapes, and it was abstract and mysterious. And I'm just think it's just such a wonderful painting. And
yeah, I think I enjoyed doing that too, and it just really came on its own into my work. I did another one too, and it was sometimes country scenes can be kind of isolated and forlorn, but I did one picture of a neighbor house in the country where I had stayed one afternoon with an elderly lady who lived there. And, some things some subject matters just come out by themselves and you're not really looking for them. But I think that's the kind of a painting I enjoy, something that's been part of my life or experience. And I, in particular, with this landscape of an old country house now abandoned, and alive in my memory, and the people, a little lady named Tilly who was babysitting for me that day, and how this is not part of the picture, but I do remember she was so friendly and crocheting at the dining room table, and she made hot biscuits and brought that to the table for me to eat with the raspberry jam.
Oh, there's
and,
the
yeah.
painting.
So, pardon?
Painting.
Yeah, my mom is holding up on her phone
painting you're talking about.
picture of the painting.
You can spotlight that.
Yeah, let me.
Oh,
there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's just
Reminds me of
tiny,
Leigh.
yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some abstraction in that,
Yeah.
piece as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne.
Yeah.
I wanted to just say one more thing, Jean. Something that you, I think you referred to was like that some things just come, and I'm never sure what people think. I have one friend who seemed very kind of confused by the fact that I was having some issues, and that some paintings took a long time to finish. Because she somehow thought I just went in the studio and made those paintings. But there are some times when a painting or a sculpture or something that you're making, it's just like you're just the conduit, like something comes through you and it comes out. And there it is. And it just seems, I don't want to use the word easy, but it seems very straightforward. Like it's not something that we have to agonize over. And it sounds to me like that painting of the corn was a vision.
Yeah, well,
Functions as a vision for me. I really like painting.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you. That's the kind of art that pleases you in your soul and your thoughts and everything. You feel happy about it,
and you're grateful for it occasionally.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The rest of it is so hard won that it's nice sometimes when something just flows.
It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you too. Well, I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I'm very bad at the electronics, but I enjoyed this completely. Thank you.
Well, we're very happy you're here, Jean. So if anybody else has questions, feel free to unmute and speak your question or comment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, this is Leigh's dad. I sent in a chat, but it may not have made it to you. I was just wondering, because I don't think I've ever asked Leigh this question, how, Leigh, you picked the paintings, or did you collaborate with your grandma on which ones you would use? Which ones inspired you, and how did you choose them?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, when I decided that it'd be a show with, works from grandma and works from me, I kind of wanted to start off with some pieces that I felt like were a good bridge point between our work. And so specifically the cornfield piece that Ellen was talking about, and the orange barn, I felt like there was an element there of abstraction that, and my work is typically so abstract that I felt like that would be a good kind of bridge point. And then, so those were like the two musts. And then from there, I really wasn't sure, because a lot of the process was just playing with the images and trying to make something. And I'll say there's a couple pieces where I tried, and the original is amazing. I couldn't make anything amazing out of it. It was like, okay, I tried. So that helped in the process of elimination a little bit there. It's just some pieces just didn't work out. And so, you know, yeah, that's kind of how it happened. Some choice, some just playing and seeing if I could make anything successful out of it.
If there are no more comments or questions, I don't want to rush anyone, but I do want to let you know about an upcoming show, which includes Gail Flanery, Leigh Blanchard, and Juliet Martin. Hi, Juliet. It's at Principal's Cafe on 9th Street in Brooklyn. It's from April 30th through May 15th, and stay tuned, and these artists will let you know when their opening reception will be. And I'd also like to mention that the next show at 440 Gallery is a solo show by Robin Roy. And, oh, what is the title of her solo show? Sorry, I can tell you.
I'll find it.
Apart is her solo show. And then in the project space, we have Seen and Unseen. And that is Amanda Michelle Brown, myself, and Juliet Martin. And that show is up from March 28th through April 28th. And please join us if you can for the opening reception on March 30th. It's Saturday from Easter weekend, Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. I hope to see you all. Any other announcements anyone has?
I have an installation going up in 5 Miles Gallery in Crown Heights. The opening is April 6th and it runs until May 12th. I'll be sending out the information. It's part of the Anxiety is a Love I Cannot Break Up With collection.
Oh, looking forward to that. Thanks, Juliet. Any other things to note? Otherwise, thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone. Great. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.